Dis ons live, né?
Dit lyk so. Hang on. Hy's besig om te gaan. Here we go. Nog 'n vriend wat ons die ding nie kan kry nie. Anyways, ek dink die ding werk nou so. Ons begin nou maar. So, I did not expect the Italian Grand Prix to be that interesting. I will be brutally honest. I do not know. It was a bit exciting for most of the time. Hold on. Did we just lose that? No, we've still got that. No, I think it was not very expected.
Yeah, no, it was rough, and well, an Italian team still won, so we can give it to Italians. They know how to win at the tempo of speed. Looking back last year, Charles Leclerc winning, getting heavily pressured from Bottas and Hamilton on the final laps.
But the thing is, this Italian team can only win at this circuit. Do you not think that might hamper them going forward?
I don't know. If you take a look at Belgium, well, not actually a close one. The strategy, unfortunately, did not favor Gasly there. Starting on the hards, getting that safety car early, bunching the field back up so he couldn't go long or anything. So then he had to pit for mediums and then fight back from the bottom, ending a respectable, I think it was P7 in Belgium.
No, they have been getting better and better over the last while, which I mean it's good to see. It's good to see an up and coming team do well. But let's start with what happened this weekend. So we had once again a disaster in qualifying, because once again everybody proved that even though they are the best drivers at their level in the world, it is always possible that you can bugger something up, like in qualifying. And it is a bit. I mean, did you see how the qualifying for F3 looked? It looked like a car park. I think they were 3 wide down, going into Parabolica at one stage.
Everyone not trying to be the first one out, but
exactly that.
Trying to get to slipstream, so
yeah. Just to slightly improve the lap.
Yeah, but if you look at it, I think it was either F2 or F3 that's qualifying. The whole field was separated by like 0.8 seconds.
That sounds quite a lot like F3. That is, but that is how close it is.
Compared to what was it like 0.8 between second and third place for Mercedes and McLaren.
I would not be surprised if that was the gap. But yeah, well, what can you do? Level the playing field. That's what you do. So let's
engine mode ban.
Let's quickly go over what was the main things that happened. Hamilton and Giovinazzi got penalties. Well, even before that, Bottas had a terrible start, and Verstappen had a terrible start. McLaren was actually looking quite good. They were doing really well. I mean,
sorry?
No, go ahead.
From the start, Lando Norris going from P6 into P3, and Sainz going from P3 into P2, challenging Mercedes from the start. Lewis Hamilton pulling away again.
Yeah, no, but I think it might. We would probably be looking at a McLaren 1-2 if it wasn't for the strange rule that say you can change your tire compound during a red flag session, or when a session is red flagged. I do think that is quite. I don't know. That's what I'd say. But Bottas having big problems at the start. That was a bit strange. But they did say that they were running higher downforce, so that they can
preserve tyre life, go longer into the race.
Increase the cornering speed, and then that hit them.
And yeah, because if you look at it, how long Bottas was actually stuck behind Lando for quite a long time in the actually the whole race. He was stuck behind Lando Norris after restart, catching him in the corners up to between the two chicanes, everything, but on the straights he was just out dragged. Just getting dropped, and then eventually until Lando opened up the 1 second gap, so you couldn't get DRS anymore. So yeah, I think the high downforce just came a bit to the detriment this weekend.
And I think you'll have the seesaw of what is actually. I should stop playing with my hair. It looks okay. I think you'll have the seesaw of what happens is that at one stage having a good chassis will be key to winning a season, while other times it will be having straight line speed that will be king. And I think that you'll have. I think Ferrari proved last year that having good straight line speed really helps and can actually help you dominate seasons. However, that's not everything you need to be able to go through a corner.
You need to have a good balanced chassis between straight line speed and downforce tracks, because at some tracks like I almost said Monza for downforce, that would have been ridiculous. Monaco, there it's mostly about downforce and your cornering speed. The quicker you can go through corners, the more you'll dominate the track there. And it's also mostly about qualifying. So
yes,
if you have a bigger downforce, you can do better in qualifying most of the time. So, but then you take a look like at Monza or Belgium, where you can just, if you have a higher end top speed, you can easily pass them on straights with DRS and everything, or sometimes even on straights without the DRS before Parabolica out of the Scottish chicane. But yeah, so
what's next on the talking points? I've
penalties. Hamilton, Giovinazzi.
Yes, that was that was quite interesting because it is there and it is visible. I think they were just caught out.
I think there was like a small margin before he actually went in to commit to the pit stop, but that's sort of on the engineer and Hamilton himself. Maybe the FIA can put signs in signaling boards inside of Parabolica instead of the outside, because drivers, I think, will mostly look inside of Parabolica and not focus on the outside that much.
I thought about exactly that, and I came to the conclusion that they won't do that. Can you still hear me? Yeah, I think the mic should still be on.
Yeah.
I think they won't do that because you are constantly looking at the inside of the corner, and if you put a sign there, that will block your line of sight, and that will then should make it a bit more dangerous. But that's we'll have to see what happens, and there will probably be some press release stating what happened, what should have been done, which is basically just should not have pitted at that time. But apparently, the Bottas's engineers had they got the message, which I think is quite strange. But
Hamilton being so far ahead of the pack from Sainz, it was just at that margin before they closed pit lane when his engineers called him to box, which they could have aborted. I don't know. Didn't see exactly where he was, but yeah, it was a tough call. But I'm glad the FIA distributed the penalty and Hamilton, giving them both equal penalties. And yes, then the red flag coming just at the wrong moment.
Just a moment. It looks like we're struggling. The stream doesn't look very smooth. I don't know why. I can't figure out why. And now they crashed completely.
Just
I've got no idea what's going on here. I'm still trying to figure out how exactly all of this is done, but yeah. I don't know. Let's just let's press on. Hopefully it works. No, it doesn't look very good. I've got no idea. Just earlier it said that this quality of the stream was fine. I don't know what's happened. This is frustrating. Okay. Don't know if this. For some reason Discord is taking a lot of it. I'm just going to close the notes for you. If that is that okay?
2 seconds. Yeah, you can close.
It should improve now. I don't know. Okay, there we go. It's better now. Okay. Where were we? We were at red flag. You were talking about the red flag.
The red flag coming. Well, for Mercedes, it was at the wrong moment, but to make the race interesting, it was at the perfect moment. Forcing Hamilton after restart to take it within 2 laps. I think 3 laps he took it on the first lap. Pitting coming in last, and then having to fight his way back up. It was almost as if we saw a reverse grid race.
That's what they were. That's what the Sky broadcasters were saying the whole time. That it was. It felt like a what do you call it? The qualifying race format that has been suggested, but that was vetoed a while ago.
It made it interesting to watch.
Yes, that is that I think is the most important thing that came out of this, and I mean I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting.
It's not just like Hamilton running away with it, Bottas leading, Verstappen trying to catch them, saying in the end, I tried my best.
Did you see
It
that?
was
Did you see the checklist that said Monza checklist for the weekend? Hamilton on pole. Gap between Hamilton and Bottas will never be smaller than 1.5 seconds, and we'll have good racing for 2 to 3 laps, and then it will be boring. And well, that couldn't have been more wrong. Well, maybe for the beginning, even the start was interesting.
yeah, the start. We also had good racing from the start with Bottas dropping down and Max as well. Albon getting his penalty.
Albon got the penalty against Grosjean. It says
Yeah.
something. Yes, okay, because I thought that the at the initial start, I thought that was a bit harsh, giving him a penalty for that, but it was no, it was completely wrong. It wasn't for that. It was because the Racing Point moved over, pushing. I don't know, but it was just a Constantino effect. Everybody shoving each other over, and then
Yeah, and I think he got a penalty for not leaving like a car swift at the end of the road, if I'm not wrong.
yes, that's how I remember it. Next on the talking points was Bottas overheating. Well, we now know that they took the wrong setup. Thought they would be running an open air up the front, and well, that's not what happened. He had a really slow reaction time. I don't know if you noticed that. It was very, very slow.
I think he might have just missed the first phase of the start. Just maybe not in the right revs from start, getting enough torque into the wheels and everything, or he might have had some wheel spin. Not sure.
From what I saw,
Yeah.
is you could see Hamilton moving. Even, from Bottas's onboard, you can see Hamilton move before he moved. He just had a terrible reaction to the lights. That's how I saw it, and then that really opened up the chance for basically everybody to
Open
to jump
invitation.
by. Yeah.
Like an open house party. Everyone comes. Everyone you don't even invite.
I've actually never been to an open party.
Me neither. I just hear these type of things.
Yeah. Let's try to stay on topic. Engine modes. First race, and I don't know ever that you will not be able to change engine modes the whole race. So you have to pick. The way I understood it, you have to pick an engine mode for qualifying.
From the start of qualifying till the end of the race.
Okay, so that sort of falls under the Parc Fermé rules. Is that
You can turn it down if you have enough reason to plead by at the stewards for reliability.
yes?
But otherwise, you can't turn it down, can't turn it up.
Yeah.
You have to short shift if you want to prolong your engine life. Then.
But Bottas was struggling with that. They said that at some stage that he was struggling with only using a single engine mode.
Yeah, I think we might have thought it might not have such a big impact, but if we look at Hamilton moving through the field, how long it took him to clear Albon, how long it took him even just to catch up to Albon, that's where I think engine modes actually came into play in this race. It greatly affected how quickly they could pass some of the, I almost called Red Bull midfield team, but in this race it looked like they were. But it's how quickly they can clear those type of teams so they can race against the top teams again.
No, it's. I don't know. I thought it was actually quite interesting overall. But okay, what's next on the talking points? I've sort of got celebrations on the talking points, and the reason for that is I'm not sure where it was, but I mean, if you look at the top teams, let's say a few years ago you had Ferrari, a Ferrari driver, a Red Bull driver, and a Merc driver on the podium. They're all standing there, very happy, spray the champagne, but nobody really looks happy. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Not the pure enjoyment of being there, having to earn it,
Yes,
knowing you
I mean,
outdrove everyone else.
if you go and watch the race highlights, I think it was Bahrain 2018. Correct me if I'm wrong. Pierre Gasly got finished 4th that race. If you there's a Formula One posted a video about this. It was the reaction the team had was amazing. It was, I mean, the guys were freaking out, running around. I mean, they were. I'm pretty sure they had a party the whole night, but I mean, they were ecstatic, and they weren't even on the podium. If you now look at Pierre, look at Sainz, look at Stroll. They really had to work for this. Well, today they got their podium and win because the other teams were tripping over each other, and this was such a big deal for them. And I've been thinking the last while, if you take away Red Bull, well, I would say Ferrari, but we now know what's happening there. Let's take last year, for example. Take away Red Bull, Ferrari, and Merc. Then you would really have an interesting race because the midfield is so tight. Nobody would.
I think last year's midfield, you had like a top two, but like Racing Point was a threat to the top two, Renault and McLaren on some of the tracks. Otherwise, it was like AlphaTauri also challenging them.
But the midfield is so tight, and that's what is always being said. If you get rid of, if a race ever gets boring, I've heard people say just ignore the front runners, and then look at the back markers. It's really an interesting, the midfield is really interesting to watch them because everybody is fighting over a few points. It's not even. I mean, my grandfather always says the most interesting battle to watch is whoever's fighting for 14th place.
It's always it's a tight battle, and they have to fight it because they don't have the certainty of points. So the more they can secure points, the better, because then in the end it's one place up in the Constructors' Championship or two in the Drivers. It's always that constant battle to have points.
It really drives these guys just to keep on working harder, and make sure you get the most out of every session, every race. I mean, I think this really meant a lot to the three guys on the podium. Yes, Sainz said he really wanted to win the race, but
that's just DNA. It's a competitiveness.
Gasly was just quicker. He's really. Thank you for agreeing with me, Kyle. Kyle in the chat. I've completely lost what I wanted to say.
Gasly just being better.
He's been improving the whole year, and he's just. I don't know. He might. Will he move back to Red Bull? Christian Horner said no when he was asked about it earlier the year. But never say never, because apparently they said that they won't let Gasly go last year, and well,
they said they'd keep him 6 months.
Yeah, and I think we will really see him reborn, because the commentators said that the biggest Albon was quite affected at the podium he lost out, and the race win he lost in Austria. Austria. And they said that had he won those races, he would have really find a new drive to do what he does. Just start overachieving, stuff like that.
That extra confidence in the.
Yes. It and he's losing that. Well, he's been struggling the whole year. He lost his podium last year. He lost his win, what I'm counting as basically a win. He had his tires was it's just bad luck and more bad luck. What's it? What did they say? Nico Hulkenberg. If he didn't have bad luck, he would have no luck. I would say. Don't think Albon is there yet, but I think he's a very patient man. He's a really nice guy. I think they'll keep him, whether it is in AlphaTauri or in Red Bull. We don't know yet, but we will see what happens.
Sorry, just quick thing with chat. Kyle says, for the sake of Gasly's career, he needs to get out of the Red Bull family. And I sort of agree with it, because if you look, Sainz was in the Red Bull drivers program, got out, went to Renault, went for, I think it was 1 year, went to McLaren now, and now he's getting signed to Ferrari. So it's quite a big step. So, well, it's a huge step getting signed for Ferrari. He's at his prime of his career, so if you just look at last year's performance, extracting maximum from the car, being a brilliant driver, and yeah, Red Bull, I don't know if they would have promoted him or just kept him in, having Daniel Ricciardo there, because Daniel only moved at the end of last year. No, wait.
No, 2 years ago.
Last year, sorry.
But the thing, part of the reason he left, I understand, was because he was really unhappy. He was really frustrated with the situation at Red Bull. And from what I've heard is that being part of Red Bull in any way is really taxing on you in almost every single possible way. So
yeah, because if you look at it now, you have to match with Max Verstappen mostly. Not because Red Bull self is going to judge them, but I think if we look at the F1 community now at all, there's pressure from Albon saying he's in the second best car, which he is, but even Max Verstappen is finding it very hard to drive. So there's always that type of pressure from outside saying you have to perform to that level.
Kyle, in response to what you said, at the time there was no space for Sainz. Yes, but they sort of got everybody there. They had way too many drivers at the time, because they had Gasly, who was waiting in the wings. You had Kvyat,
Daniel,
and you had the two Daniels at Red Bull.
Brendan Hartley.
He was somewhere in the picture as well. And from what and apparently that Sainz and Verstappen was not getting along. So the promotion of Verstappen to Red Bull was more of a let's not have a severe team rivalry, intra-team rivalry starting early in the season, because we actually want to score good points. And I think that was probably a tough decision to make for whoever made the call to put Verstappen higher up, but I think that was probably the better move, and I think Sainz is really happy with where he came out. Should we then move on to what has happened this week and since the last time we spoke, or is there anything else you want to say about
today's race? Not really. No, I think everything might have been covered with. Oh, and Ferrari just being out of pace completely. I think Leclerc had,
because Spa wasn't very good either.
But like Leclerc he's having good starts, but from there on it's just the race pace that's not there on any compound of tyre even. So it's just not looking good for them at this moment in the constructors' championship or drivers even.
Well, I must say the third position is shaping up to be quite interesting in the championship for the teams, because I think you've got
It's
basically
McLaren.
every team apart from Alfa Romeo and Williams competing for third.
Haas as well. Haas has only
Haas,
scored
you are
1
correct.
point.
Yes, Haas. Let's just check.
Because currently there's I think it's 16 points gap between McLaren and Racing Point for third in the Constructors' Championship.
I'll quickly check.
But we have to take into account Racing Point has withdrawn the appeal to have the 15 Constructors' Championships point removed.
Was it only 15? I thought
Yeah,
it was
only 15.
7.5 for each. Okay, it could be. I can't remember, but okay. If you say so, I'll have to believe you. So the Constructors' Championship at the moment is McLaren third with almost 100 points. Racing Point fourth with about 80 points. Renault with 70 points. Ferrari with 60 points. Just about. I'm not giving exact numbers here. AlphaTauri with almost 50 points, and then the back three teams. But so yes, I think third to seventh, if Toro Rosso keeps on performing the way they did this this year, because they've almost scored, they've scored points at every single race bar Hungary. I think we will really be. I think they will definitely be able to challenge for third. I mean, fighting. I mean, we've seen them hold off the McLaren of Sainz, but that's. I mean,
if there was more laps, he would have caught him. He was closing at a tremendous pace in the final few laps. I think he was.
I did not get that feeling, but I mean, that's just the way it's just the way I see it. But I mean,
He had scenario 7 available to him, but
really?
yeah. In the last lap, it was like full on.
But isn't that part of the engine modes that you can't change?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think it's more about power deployment or how your ERS is deployed during the lap.
Okay, now I'm not 100% sure what that is about. Okay then, on to what has happened this week. The Williams family team has stepped down. It is they broadcasted a bit at the end where both drivers thanked Claire Williams and Sir Frank for everything they've done. No, Kyle, I can see fine, thank you. Where they have what they've done for the sport, and I think it's sad to see them go, but I do think we will still see them appear at races, whether it is British Grand Prix or at somewhere along the line there will be some old Williams heritage cars that will show up as a pre-event for the Grand Prix, and we will still see them. They might not still be part of the sport directly, but they have not checked out. They've basically checked out completely, but they will sort of return. Sebastian Vettel is still apparently linked to Racing Point, which I don't know.
Wouldn't we? I think there was one article that said we would have seen him sign for Aston Martin next year at the Belgium Grand Prix, but then there's no more news about that.
I I heard about that, and I was actually quite surprised when it did not. The stream is struggling again. Why is the stream struggling? Hold on, let's see if we can change. Please tell me the stream is still on. Waldo,
Wat nou? Sorry.
weet je of je stream nog aan is?
Ja, hij is nog aan.
Okay, because I've just lost the window that controls the stream.
Don't worry. Just go with it.
I just want to make sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Dankie Kyle. Dankie dat jy sê die stream is fyn. Ons waardeer dit. Ons is nog nie aan hierdie.
As dit nie duidelik is nie.
Ja.
Okay. Where were we?
Vettel not signing for Aston Martin
That
at Belgium.
I'm not sure. I think he should. I think somebody said at one stage he should just take the year off and just somehow be an advisor to a team in some way. But I'm not sure if he's still.
Or sign as a test driver.
But the test drivers do so little nowadays. I think it's not something he would want to do.
Well, you can maybe go and copy Alonso and try the Triple Crown. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
Just for the sake of it.
And then Sainz says he's optimistic about Ferrari. If that is what he says, that's what he says. I mean, we have seen Ferrari bounce back from disastrous years. 1980 comes to mind. They won the championship with Jody Scheckter the previous year. And yes, they did bounce back eventually after I don't know how many years. But, I mean, it's possible for a team to bounce back. That is if that is what he says. The team is probably telling Sainz stuff that we don't even know. That is
inside information. Well, technically not inside because it's a future driver. So
I have not seen that thing that says Vettel has been offered a drive at Le Mans. Kyle, do you know what team has offered the drive? Or because Red Bull is opening. Red Bull is to enter at some stage with a Valkyrie. Toyota is still there. Who else? I think McLaren has been looking into moving or starting to compete in Le Mans. I'm not actually sure who he might have offered to. I'll definitely have a look at that.
I'm here on an article now. It says he has received a public invitation from Scuderia Cameron Glickenhaus. I don't know if it's a team manager or a team self. Sorry, I'm not into Le Mans that much. I'll go and check it out a bit.
We'll have to go look. And then sort of the next topic, wheel tethers. Wheel tethers not staying attached. Wheel tethers not doing what they should do. I think wheel tethers were brought in after the Senna accident in 1994. But, I mean, have we seen a single wheel tether work this year? because even though that massive shunt happened to Leclerc today, the wheel still came off. The rear wheel was completely loose of the car. And the whole reason for the wheel tether is that it doesn't rip off and hit the...
Hit over drivers become a risk to them.
Well, mainly hit the driver's own head, but yes, also becoming a weapon for some teams. If you don't want a Williams on the track anymore, poor George Russell.
Yeah,
That must have been an interesting experience.
That's a perfect example. Looking back last week in Belgium, Giovinazzi crashing into, losing the rear end, and then the wheel just came flying off, ending Russell's race effectively just there.
That was, and they've got something like 3 tethers per wheel. I think you need to have at least three tethers per wheel, and something like you can pick up half of the grid on a single tether. That is how strong those tethers are. But well, something's not quite right at whoever's making wheel tethers. I don't know.
Or maybe it's just about the sheer impact force that goes through them.
But I mean, even if you're looking back at that massive crash with Alonso and I think it was Esteban Gutierrez at
Australia 2016.
Yes, I mean, even he flew through the air for, I don't know, a good at least 70 meters. He hit the barriers and the tether stayed connected. It's I mean, a very big impact, but it still kept the tires on, which is, I mean, it's just strange to see it, but I don't know. They're probably looking into it, trying to fix it. Next up, the FIA. This is gonna.
This is Chris's favorite topic.
I'm gonna try and not make this a rant, but okay. There are some silly regulations, and they are doing some silly new regulations. If I remember correctly, in 2016 or 2017, they said they're going to try and get rid of party mode, and I think it was also showed its head in 2018 because there was the big controversy about party mode qualifying for Hamilton, how he got pole position at the first race of the season in Australia. And I'm not sure that they're going to manage to completely get rid of it, because apparently they can monitor it now, but I'm still the teams will somehow get past it. I'm just not so sure about it. That's why it says engine mode ban again. They've also got a silly new regulation that say you can't build a car off of pictures of another car. And this is mainly about the fact that Racing Point copying or taking pictures, they say, of the
brake ducts of the Mercedes.
No. The brake ducts of the Mercedes they actually got from them, but the car overall they say they got from taking pictures. They're going to try and cut that out, but just quickly think about that. If you can't take pictures, you can't broadcast any image to the teams, because if you're broadcasting that, you're effectively sending them pictures, and nothing is stopping them from designing a car off of those images. But I don't know. They'll probably figure that out.
Yeah, I think it was maybe because I think Renault protest. I think it was the front brake duct specifically, because the rear brake ducts they obtained in 2019 when it was still a non-listed part, when it was legal to.
Yes.
buy it from another team. But with the new regulation change, you had to design your own brake ducts using data. But because they didn't run it in 2019, they didn't have data on it. That's where the appeal got in.
Yeah, it was just a silly story, and I think it came down to just had they asked, had they gone and say, listen, this is what we're planning to do, this is how we see the regulations, the whole thing could have been somehow averted. Don't know if that's really true, but we'll have to see. I have to see how that goes. Then silly regulations. Why are you not? I mean, somebody said. People from the media outlet called The Race said that the only reason that rule exists is so that you don't get engineers coaching drivers on how to keep tires warm on the formation lap. It's just, I don't know, is it really still that important to not have that? Because
Christy, you
yeah,
still there?
sorry,
Okay, no, I thought I almost lost you on my
no,
side. Sorry.
no. Okay. It's just
Yeah.
there's no. I mean, and they said that that rule only exists for somebody to say, yes, you see that I contributed that bit of rule on that page.
Mm.
But there's no actual proper reason. It doesn't affect racing. Because if you're standing on the grid, you're standing on the grid and you're losing temperature in anyways.
Yeah, if like P1, he's usually the guy waiting the longest on the grid. Sure, he has the shortest run up to from the start into the first corner, but he's always under threat. Like in Russia, it's such a long run into corner one that's slipstreaming and giving it's such a huge role in it.
That is the main thing about it, is that you have to well,
And
okay,
I
Kyle, what you've said there is, if engineers would stop trying to be so clever, then we wouldn't need these rules. That's actually part of it on. They're permanently doing damage control. If you think about it, every time there's some rule gets announced, they have to immediately say, oh, no, okay, no, this is what we... Then they have to re-specify everything, and it's just that if you look at, it's just that they're permanently trying to say, okay, now let's fix this rule that we thought was completely foolproof, and then, okay, now they found something else, let's go, I don't know, kill that fire before it spreads. And I mean, I think a lot of teams were initially looking at incorporating DAS and then just ban it immediately before budget cap comes.
But I think another one maybe on that one is if you look at Braun GP with their double diffuser, there were two other teams running it as well. It's always those little loopholes in the new regulations that it actually makes it worthwhile going and digging into the regulations instead of just accepting it and saying, okay, this is what it is, so we have to look somewhere else. They can become quite clever with looking everywhere for it.
It's it's just you cannot. I mean, they say that they apparently got a bunch of lawyers to go over the 2021 rules that has now been postponed, and apparently, well, I think there's a lot of holes already poked in those, but I don't know. It's just a permanent struggle to keep teams at bay, and I don't think they'll ever properly manage to solve it. And then also just stagnant philosophies. That's what I wrote. Stagnant ideas and philosophies. Other series have these ideas just to put a new let's say just try something new. I mean, the Formula E qualifying is a prime example. I mean, you take you put the best, you put the championship leaders out on the worst track, and they set sort of like a banker lap, and then you take the grid and divide them into into 4 groups, and then send each group out, and then who's ever got the fastest time overall, they get the 6 who's got the fastest time overall, they go into a special session where they then where they then set their final times. And it's interesting because whoever's championship leader usually does not carry through to the final qualifying session, to the Super Bowl shootout, and it's just I don't know. I mean, reverse grids. I think they were proposing using reverse grids for Formula E at one stage. The W Series used a reversed grid, and that even there it proved that the best driver will be able to fight through the field, even though everybody's got the same car, everybody can see the setup, and I just don't think I think they can really do a bit more to, I don't know, innovate. Just try another qualifying session, because the qualifying race is also a good example. Give them, I don't know, 3-lap qualifying race for the reverse championship order seems a bit short, but maybe 5 laps? I don't know. But the thing is, people will be holding on to that position. Otherwise you say do a normal qualifying session and do a 5-lap reverse championship order race, and then you take the average position that you scored there and carry that through to the race. But I don't know. I'm sure Ross Brawn and his group of people, they're probably thinking about this, trying to solve the problem.
Because maybe, I don't know. It's a tough one to try and make it more interesting, because if you take, you can't actually base it off of championship standings, because, well, that's basically just the way they would normally qualify. Hamilton P1, Bottas P2, Verstappen P3, and then the rest is just there. So yeah, it would be quite nice to see an interesting race again, like the one we just had today in Monza, where you have your midfield team battling for 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Race.
Yeah, Carl, what you're saying there is very true, and that's it's just that everybody's I think everybody was so used to talking with Bernie Ecclestone and consulting him about everything. It's all changed since he's left. So I think everybody's still trying to figure out how do you fight to get new regulations that you want passed. And then, Stephen, the thing about fastest laps from the previous race is that because tracks differ so much, depending on where you are depending on the calendar, you can end up with, going from a very fast low downforce track to a very high downforce track. It won't really, and then the cars don't react the same way. So it's a point you're making, but I don't think it's not really applicable, because now you're using information from a previous weekend to get something for this weekend done. And the last time, people just aren't really happy when it's people usually aren't happy when you start using multiple races to get previous weekends to decide what's going on this weekend.
If I look, sorry, because then for next week, it would be Hamilton, Sainz, Stroll, Ricciardo, Bottas, Gasly, Norris, Perez, Russell, and Kvyat in the top 10.
You've still got Hamilton. But the thing is, I mean, I can remember somebody saying that the moment that fastest lap point came in, saying that that is just a free point to whoever has to the top 3 teams. Because I remember I looked the day they announced that only once in the season in 2017, which was the year before they introduced the point, I think, was that there was only once in the whole year that a non-front running team scored or got fastest lap. And I think change it around. Make fastest lap 3 points, but you have to finish outside of the top 10. Because now you've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 points. However, but the thing is, you need to be able to get to whoever is in 10th or 9th and 10th. That's the idea. Get to whoever is 9th and 10th and say, one of you guys, or is it possible, should we drop out of a firm position, say you're 10th and you know you're getting 1 point, you've got a gap behind you, drop into that, and then you can set a quick lap.
Sorry?
No, go ahead.
I think maybe then you have to exclude it from a Constructors' Championship point. So if it's like in the last race in Abu Dhabi, and the driver is fighting for, let's say, P5, but the team's position is already solidified, then the team can make that call and say, okay, we see you over here, let's bid you for new softs, and you do a push lap for fastest lap, and then maybe secure P5 in Drivers' Championship.
But but the thing is, you cannot, if you finish inside of the top 10, you don't get those extra points.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like, if he's in 9th or 10th, instead of pushing for that one driver's point and one Constructors' Championship point, you put him out of the top 10 and then put him on new softs so you can push and gain it for drivers instead of constructors. Because otherwise, people in P9 and P10 isn't going to be motivated to try and push higher, but maybe get pitted out, see how the pace is, get put out, put on new softs, and then just push for fastest lap.
Sorry, I'm not understanding what you're saying. So are you saying that it should only count towards the driver's title?
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying that could have maybe played a role in, once again, Abu Dhabi last year, where, I think Sainz won the race by a single point. And had he been equal, no, he didn't win. He finished ahead of Gasly by a single point.
Gasly and Albon. Yeah, but sorry, Gasly by a single point. Yeah, that's correct.
I mean that if you reverse, if you change that around, telling I don't know, have Gasly pit for quicker tires, and then somehow try to set a faster lap. I think it's an interesting idea. I don't know. Does Ross Brawn have an open email address? And then no, go ahead.
that would just give that extra bit of I wouldn't say strategy, but if it's like in that final die-hard straight, it's like it would always make it a bit more interesting to watch. But if you put it like to Constructors' Championships, it would just there wouldn't be any need to fight for P10, P11, or not P10, P9 or P8, because that's 1, 2, and 3 points. So you can effectively
1,
be
2,
at
and 4 points, I think. But yeah, but I do think they should have given something to fight for the last for the bottom teams. But yeah, once again, hard decisions to make, and who knows how this is going to play out. Kyle, you say the teams want prize money and they don't. They couldn't care less about drivers' points, so it wouldn't make a difference. Yeah, it would. Yes, okay. That would then cause a bit of friction between what the driver wants and what the team wants, and then. But yeah,
if you look back at last year,
sorry, go ahead.
I understand his point completely. Sorry, I'm only mentioning it in the way, like last year again with Carlos Sainz. Instead of having to try and battle through the Renaults, maybe let him pull away, build up a massive enough gap, but still that you can get the slipstream, and then maybe try and set the fastest lap. So then he would have been in front of Gasly in Drivers' Championship, because the Constructors' Championship between Renault and McLaren was already solidified.
No, okay. So I think there are scenarios in which it would make a difference, but then also in others, it would not.
Yeah, it would cause more conflict.
Yes. I think is that all we want to say about the new regulations?
I think maybe so.
Okay, and then the AWS fastest driver rating. Let me just quickly get what that was, because I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think it was Ayrton Senna, and then it was Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen. I think that's the top 4.
Yes, I've got it here now. But hold on, where's the top 20? Okay, yes, and then you've got 5th, you've got Fernando Alonso. 6th is Hülkenberg. 7th is Charles Leclerc, and 8th is Heikki Kovalainen. 9th is Jarno Trulli. 10 is Sebastian Vettel, and I don't know where the others are. Hold on, let's just try and get the others.
I mean, it's quite interesting if you look at it. Michael Schumacher being 0.1 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. This is according to the data, if they were in same cars and everything.
But the other big point of criticism with this was, what era of cars are you driving? What track are you driving? And well, okay, and it's obviously not wet weather running, because they eliminated all wet weather running from these scenarios, which I do think is ridiculous, because wet weather running is some of the best way of measuring how good a driver is in changeable conditions. The other thing is, it's the best driver of all time, but it is not of all time, because it only goes into just a bit more than half of Formula One's actual history. It just I think they only look at something like 38 years of the sport. Now, yes, you wouldn't have onboard footage of the older races, but then you really have to start looking into what are you really, really saying. I mean, I think AWS also made. I think they also gave some of the statistics for the Formula One game, because they had a very similar, because they gave driver ratings for each individual driver itself. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't know about that.
No, but I just thought that was completely ridiculous, because now you're basically telling the teams what drivers are good and which ones are not. Because think about it. What you've said there is that, okay, Alfa Romeo, we think you've got the worst driver on the grid, Antonio Giovinazzi. And I don't think that's correct, because now you're the sport telling people who you are claiming to be the ultimate of all time. No.
Sorry, I have to echo words of Ross Brawn and the guy and the people at AWS that helped him with this.
Mm-hmm.
This is only over one lap, but this is only one lap pace. So this is, I think, like the top 20 in qualifying.
But I don't think they communicated that correctly, Valdo, because why is it called the fastest drivers of all time? Because they could have easily called it the fastest drivers, the fastest qualifiers, the best, the Formula One's best qualifiers. And even looking at that, I mean, how do you know what is actually going? I mean, I remember reading a lot of conspiracy theories saying that Senna had a much better engine than Prost did in the McLaren Honda era, and whenever does two teammates have different chassis, and I mean, yes, they explain that they use machine learning to analyze the lap, but I don't think that is the thing. I think a part of this is that it should be able to be debated into. This debate should never be able to close, because do you really expect that people sitting around a bar saying, oh, I think Senna was the best driver of all time? Well, we sort of have to agree with you, since that's what AWS say.
No one's going to do that.
Nobody's going to do that. And the other thing is, I remember, I mean, there are some names. I mean, what's the other thing? If you actually go and look at the people on the list, in the top 20, Truly was a good qualifier. I will hand it to him. He wasn't his race pace wasn't very good. But if you actually go and look at everybody in the top, I think 10 of the top 20 drivers raced in the last 5 years. Have you realized that?
It seems to favor newer drivers.
It's just because they've got more data on them and everything. It's just, I don't understand why they said that, because it just doesn't make sense. You're giving numbers to people. Kyle, I see you say it is just an educational exercise, but I mean, then don't publish it then they shouldn't have published it the way they did. Say that after this amount of studying, we came to this conclusion. Now, the point I want to make about this is it's not just, statistics is one thing. Looking at machine learning data, that's also, that's something else, and that there's probably some merit to it. But it's not about that. The other thing is, it's about the stories. Because if you go and look at anything from, say, any stories that came out of the 1960s, you'll have these amazing stories of, yes, what was his name?
Jack
Brabham lapping the entire field at the Dutch Grand Prix. That's an amazing story. So Jackie Stewart winning a race by, I think, 5 minutes. Jim Clark or Jackie Stewart winning the race by 5 minutes. I thought about this and say, what made the Niki Lauda and James Hunt rivalry good? And I came to the conclusion that it was part of the fact that Lauda turned around. He was basically dying. He somehow turned his medical situation around and got back to racing. Sorry, looks like I'm getting warnings saying the stream is not going well. If somebody can please just say in the chat if the stream is still working and if it's stuttering or something. And I would refer anybody who, if you're not sure about what I'm saying, I would say go and watch 2 series that Formula One has posted. The one is the Moments of Brilliance videos. You'll have, they did those on, off the top of my head, I can think of thank you, Kyle. They can think, they made one about Rosberg, they made one about Prost, I'm pretty sure there was one about Senna, there should be one about Alonso, because it shows how people made the worst out of bad situations. It's the story of how you, I don't know, picked yourself up. I mean, here's another example. Damon Hill. Let's quickly have a look at his career. He was the son of the only man to win the Triple Crown. He never, but by the time he actually won his first title, he finally won his first title. It wasn't great, he won his title. It was very late. He struggled for many years to get there, and by the time he did it, it was, oh great, finally you did it. That's not what happened. It's the story. His father died in his championship year, and he had to pick himself up from that and actually won the championship. It's not just as simple as get in the car and drive, because that's, I don't know, I think it's just, everything is a bit too data driven.
Yeah. Sorry, but then you also have to look like at Robert Kubica being on the list and Charles Leclerc as well. Being with, I think Charles lost his dad. I'm speaking under correction. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, I will.
Before one of his, I think it was a Formula 2 race win. And he also lost his friend Antoine at last year Belgium during the F2 tragedy.
Yes, there's the whole story that he, when Bianchi died in 2015, he immediately got up and I think he basically cleaned out the remainder of the Formula 3 season, I think it was, when he lost his father in 2017, picked himself up. I think he actually had a full. He did the last to first challenge. He completed the last to first challenge successfully at Bahrain in I think it was the sprint race. And then even after after Antoine died last year, he went on to win the race. It is just, it's these stories that make it interesting. It's not about, yes, the data is there and whoever, yes, of course, there's a lot more data going on nowadays and a lot less data back then. And I think we're really losing the humanitarian side of these stories. And I think it's important. If you ever, it's really fun to go and watch even the Letter to My Younger Self stories. They are really also made by Formula One, where it's really interesting to watch it, because drivers will tell, they say, well, you will experience hard times, and that's just how life is. Nothing is just what happens on the track. It's actually stuff going on in their private lives. But yeah, anything you want to add?
No, nothing from my side.
Any questions in the chat? Because I think we've been going for almost more than
1 hour 14 minutes.
Yep. Oh, we've actually got some other news. Renault will race as Alpine next year.
But yeah, with the French colors, the blue, white, and red.
Yeah, I'm not sure about because it just why change the name again?
No idea, honestly.
Because they did change the name a while ago to Lotus, I think, and it just didn't. Yeah, I just think just keep keep it simple because it's not gonna it if I'm telling you now, if Racing Point or Aston Martin for next year do not drop the pink sponsorship, the pink livery, people will still refer to it as a Force India, despite the
Yeah,
fact that we haven't had a Force India since 2018.
it's going to be a Force India Racing Point Aston Martin.
Yeah, I mean the conglomerate of names, it will just become ridiculous.
It's
It's just going to. Yes, Kawi. I think actually they do use the Alpine for some Alpine car in Monaco for some on track duty, but I'm not 100% sure for what. It just seems a bit unnecessary to change because now you have to relearn the name because people are still going to call. I still need to stop myself before I say Toro Rosso nowadays because I need to say Alpha Tauri because it's just coming so naturally. It's just coming naturally. You've gotten used to saying the one name.
yeah, it's almost synonymous with Toro Rosso being Red Bull's smaller um, team. Well, they feed a team. Like it's hard to say AlphaTauri now. It's like Toro Rosso.
Mm.
It's just embedded into. Sorry, but on the topic of Toro Rosso, it's the first win for Toro Rosso / AlphaTauri since the 2008 Monza GP.
Yeah, that was Sebastian Vettel.
Mm.
And what kind of makes that story funny is that Red Bull already existed at the time. So it
Yeah.
is yeah. So yeah, no, yeah, Alpine Renault. It's actually already on what is known as the world source of information, also known as Wikipedia.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Oh,
I
yes.
don't know how I feel about this. I do know that Alonso said that he would like to see some blue back on the cars, but I don't know that much blue because Alpine. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't their cars traditionally very blue? I mean, if I think about the images I saw, it's blue cars. That's what I think about. But yeah,
Mm.
Fernando Alonso, he has not yet confirmed his number. I see, but he'll probably take 14 again. That's the number he originally used. I think it'll
Uh,
be quite strange to see if he
if he takes
changes.
another,
But what other number would he pick? Because he likes 14. It just
maybe 7, maybe 27. 2 times 7, 14, 27. Yeah, no, I'm bored. I'm sorry.
okay. Never mind.
It's not good math joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how to feel about Alonso's return. Excited? Yeah, it would be nice to see him coming back into the sport because Renault was in a tough spot. Because
Mm.
Daniel Ricciardo moving over to McLaren next year leaves
Mm.
open a free space at Renault. But you have Ocon, but you have to see he's not really like a veteran with his knowledge and experience.
Mm.
So they want someone to guide the team.
No, so what I do think is I read somewhere that the reason they signed Alonso so quickly is because he because they lost Ricardo, because Sainz got signed to Ferrari and McLaren signed Ricardo, and then they said, well, okay, we've lost our star driver, what do we do now? And it's like, okay, quickly get the next best thing you can, being Alonso. But I don't know. I think, yeah, Kyle. I don't think he'll. I mean, they are on the up. But I don't think they're at the stage where they will
Challenge the likes of Red Bull and
win a third title. But I mean, I don't know. You had 2010 to 2012. He really had apparently the Ferrari that year was really bad when he still raced for them. But I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But I do think what is quite funny is that he won't be able to go to Indy because McLaren has not McLaren, Renault, or now Alpine has blocked any possibility of him doing that.
So no, he might get a third title, but he won't get the Triple Crown now.
He's gonna have to wait a while. And he's just not experienced enough to in that field of motorsport to actually make a meaningful impact there. So
maybe if he didn't re-sign this for Renault next year and just stayed in Indy to try and master it, it would have maybe ended in him winning a Triple Crown.
I think it just yeah, but apparently half of the teams are eliminated off the list he can possibly join because Honda doesn't really want him to drive for a Honda powered team.
Honda doesn't want him to feel the GP1 power now.
Yeah, GP2. Kyle, who needs the Triple Crown or Triple Crown when you can have 3 titles? I don't know. There probably will be people who disagree with you, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he might be able to go and do the Dakar again, but he will need more experience in that area. But I mean, finishing, I think it was 10th in his debut season, I don't think that's bad. I'll have to see what comes from that. But I mean, as far as I know, he doesn't really have a contract or anything keeping him going back to Toyota for next year or whenever it is. But okay, is there any other questions in the chat that we can quickly answer?
I think maybe give it like 1 minute because we have a delay on. So
anything else you would like to? Anything else about the race itself you would like to discuss? So I'm just trying to think what actually happened because it was quite hectic. At times it was a bit tough to keep track of what was actually going on.
I'm just upset they broadcasted in the closing stages of the race. Yeah, I know Hamilton is coming back from bottom, going up, but I would have quite liked to see the battle between Okay, firstly, I'm a McLaren fanboy, so let's get it out of the way. I would have liked to see the battle between Pierre Gasly and Sainz and Bottas, or maybe just a bit more of the midfield teams than Hamilton trying to fight his way back and everything.
You know, something else I did think about while watching and I only noticed it while watching the Indy 500 earlier this year, was that they've got a special type of penalty where what happens is you get sent to the back of the field.
Mm-hmm.
Now they don't have blue flag rules in IndyCar, but I thought about it and said, well, hey, hang on, why not just keep that? Shouldn't Formula One just introduce that rule? Because let's say you do something, I don't know, just introduce that, because even if, I don't know, it just introduce the rule, because we've seen now that even with, I don't know how many laps to go, you can fight your way from, what was it, 8th? I'm not sure where he was. From 18th to 7th.
So, yeah,
It's
ended in
completely
7th.
in more than in half of the race. What is stopping you from actually just doing the whole thing that way? Because, I mean, you've got Formula 2, Formula 3, and all the support series. And what guys do they pick? Do they pick the guys who can trundle around the back and hope they might score a point at some stage during the season? No, they actually pick the guys who win. George Russell hasn't scored a single point. Oh wait, has he? No, he hasn't scored a single point in Formula One in his entire career, despite the fact that he won the championship. I mean, two guys also second and third in the championship, same year as in Formula 2 championship, Lando Norris and Alex Albon. But completely different. All three of these guys have got different scenarios and on where they are actually driving. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Antonio Giovinazzi actually won the GP2 title. I mean, Esteban Ocon and Kvyat and I don't know who else here, but they're all won titles. Now, well, I'm sorry, but name the last driver that came into the sport and directly went and won a race. Okay, Charles Leclerc is the first that comes to mind, but yes, it was a year and a half after he joined the sport, which is sort of understandable. He started at the back just to feel the water. But I mean, Gasly has been in the sport for, I think, 2 years now, because he was in this, no, more than 2 years, because he was there for the end of 2017, the whole of 2018, whole of 2019, and now this year. So he's effectively been in the sport for 3 years, and he's only getting his first win now because the playing field isn't level. It just...
Because you have to look at his George Russell not scoring a single point, but he is in a Williams, so the chances of that happening very slim at this moment.
Yes, but it's...
But yeah, that's where the budget gap comes in again.
The thing
Trying
is...
to level.
Yeah, it's... This just seems... I don't know. But I do think they can really... Because think about this. I'm sure if you actually go and watch Formula 2 races, you will see George Russell can actually... He will... I don't know, I didn't watch Formula 2 really. But you'll see that he's actually quite a good defender. Well, as everybody who makes it to F1 should be. But now all he's doing is jumping... He's getting places, getting as many places on the opening lap of the Grand Prix he possibly can, and try to hang on to them throughout the race. Now, looking at the other two drivers who finished below him, Albon and Giovinazzi, well, Albon had a penalty, if I'm not mistaken, and he really got caught out by the red flag, and Giovinazzi got a penalty. Had it not been for that, he would be behind them. It's just, the playing field needs to be leveled, either through budget cap, and all those things are long-term things. I think reverse championship order 5-lap race, and then I don't know, they just change it up a bit, because at the moment you've got great talents just sitting nowhere.
Mm-hmm. It's sad actually to see it. Because
look at Alonso's. I'll give you a chance to finish that that thought. But look at Alonso's last few years at McLaren. He was good, but I mean, that they were struggling with engine the entire, basically ever, and let him start at the front because they hardly ever scored points. Well, he would have started probably P5 or higher, if I going roughly off of memory. But now then he's defending against basically everybody, which is actually could make for good racing, because I think when people talk about good racing, they talk about seeing overtakes and multi-lap battles and all that type of stuff. It's just, and that's, I mean, if you just want to force that, okay, great. Put in a then reverse grids are the way to go, or I don't know.
Make Formula One Spec Series just faster.
And sort of the way that Super Formula went, the Japanese series. But I mean, if you think about that, you do get rid of all of these about this whole FIA rant that we went on earlier. But and the other thing is that you can only make 2 cars per team, which I do think, which just does not make sense, because think about it. Teams are struggling for money. Okay? I will put, I'm 90% sure that somewhere someone will pay to have a third and fourth car made by anyone. Doesn't matter who, but the fact is they will be able to get a team running in Formula One. Now, it will be incredibly expensive because all of the bits is very expensive, but the thing is you can then have a team compete in a way where they can get along with limited money because they don't need an R&D budget. All they need is a what do you say? All they need is the money to physically run an operation. They don't need anything else. And then you can put some sort of cap on it, say if any of the top 3 teams of the previous season cannot supply a chassis for the following year or something like that. But I think bringing in customer cars is actually quite good, and people say, oh, it's going to ruin the sport and things. I mean, so many world champions started out in cars that were run as a third car on weekends. I know that off the thought, JD Scheckter started in a third McLaren. Gilles Villeneuve started in a third car run by some team, I can't remember. But you can actually give other people chances to compete there. And even if you don't really, it just, and you could even buy cars from other teams. Lotus famously sold a lot of cars to other teams because people would buy it because it was fast. Those cars were fast race cars. It just, I think they should really look into, well, okay, along with simplifying the aero, simplifying the barge board, simplifying everything. I'm not. Yeah, they can. I do think that they can take half of the regulations, half of the technical regulations, half of the, I don't know, maybe not the sporting regulations, but just throw half of it away, and just try and. I mean, there's a silly rule that say your car can only have 4 wheels. Now, yes, I really do love the story about the 6-wheeled Tyrrell winning the Swedish Grand Prix because it's the only time it ever happened. But that's a good, once again, that's a good story. It's not, it's not just about what happens on the track. That's just my personal feel on things.
I think, like with the customer teams, customer car teams, it's sort of where Haas is at the moment. Haas, they get the suspension, the engine, the wings. Okay, I think the front wings as well as spec from last year's. I think most of the non-listed parts is from Ferrari self.
Okay, I'm actually not sure, but I do know that. Hold on. There you're back. I do know that. So that a lot of the production is actually done by Dallara. They don't actually. Haas doesn't actually own any carbon fiber molding facilities. That is all outsourced to Dallara, who actually makes the Formula 2 and I think Formula 3 cars. But it's just, yeah, they can really do a lot to make the sport cheaper. I mean, if you actually go and look at the annual budget of a few years ago, Racing Point, and you could run Haas and then Force India, you can run those whole teams twice in the budget that Ferrari would run, that their whole operation cost them in a single year, because that is how much, that's how big the money difference was. And I think if you can have teams make some money back on it, just some return on investment, it just, I think that's just a way of having it. Okay, is there something you want to say, Valdu, about that?
No.
Stephen in the chat, make the last race of the year so that all cars are the same on specs. I thought about this the other day, and seeing as we're basically in a super season this year because the regulations are the same for this year and next year. So the 2021 regulations only start at March, effectively 2022. So why don't they just employ I don't know, say, take Dallara for example. They do actually produce quite a lot of cars in the time of a year. Why not get them to produce the 2020 those models that they actually created for demonstrating what they want cars to look like? Get them to produce 20 of those full size and ship 3 extra front wings with each one, and tell all of the teams, just, I don't know, work around making the engine fit. And that is the car you have to pitch up, you have to take to testing, and you have to take to let's say the first race, because then you've basically only got the difference of engines and setup.
Or if you want to make it really interesting, just give them all F2 cars, same spec, same setup, suspension, everything. Let him battle it out.
Yeah, I think that is. I mean, you do see those stories of people driving, especially in the 50s, to driving in all categories, where they yeah, car, we know it's called F2, but honestly, it could probably, you can probably spice things up a bit by mandating some parts in a way. That's just it's just an idea. It's once again, I don't expect Ross Brawn or anybody of the FIA to actually watch this video. We've been going for, I think, almost an hour and a half now, an hour and 40 minutes. Pardon. But I don't know. I think once again, is there any other questions that are not, or statements that are not ludicrous, like selling cars to spectators after a race?
Yeah, I'm not sure your average Jay is walking around like with 150 million euros. Just
Not.
like casually, yeah, thank you for the car. Bye, go. It's mine now.
I mean, there was a lot of controversy in the early 2000s of Ferrari building cars for Red Bull, and then Red Bull just basically changing the engine and tires for the Toro Rosso that they bought for the next year. I just think that is there's some use in just passing a car down to another team, because I mean, what's a Ferrari class has a good relationship with a Formula 2 team called Prema. Nothing is stopping Ferrari from, say, giving them the car for, I don't know, let's say a week at some racetrack, and they have to use. I mean, why don't you just use a third car for a third works car for any team, and let them use it for a young driver, and then you don't put them in qualifying. You put them in the furthest back actual slots on the grid, and that's it. So that you can still have like the proper race at the start, and then sort of, you can call it the junior category, or I don't know, give them their own race or something. But I do think you can actually do some stuff to get other teams to promote other teams getting into the sport, because let's say you want to actually you want to start a Formula 1 team. Well, okay, you're going to need a hell of a lot of you're going to need an engineer that can build a car. You're going to need or design a car. You're going to need what else are you going to need? You're going to need management. You're going to need staff. You're going to need mechanics. You're going to need a factory. All of this, once you've gotten all of this, it's an incredibly big investment. And if you want to do that, I mean, let's say you just sell the design, or you license the design for a car to other teams, and it's just an idea, but you don't actually do much to it. Okay, so when regulations change, it does become a bit more difficult, because that it changes stuff. But I think getting other cars, getting more cars on the grid, it's just an easy way of doing it. But don't have it run by the works team itself. There should be some sort of way of not having them interfere with what you can call the main championship. As I thought you can have sort of like the constructors championship and the team championship. But the thing is, you still you, you get stuck in the wording because you need to be a constructor and you can't just be a team. But the words are used interchangeably. But I think we should start finishing off the stream. Valdo, is there something you would want to add?
Not really. I just wish F1 was as interesting as Monza all the time. Unpredictable and fun.
Where are we
That's all.
next weekend? Are we next weekend? It is Tuscany, I think. Or is that Mugello? I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
no, Tuscany next weekend.
What track is that? That would then be
It,
Mugello.
it, it's
Okay,
yeah,
so
it's a 1000th race for Ferrari.
oh really? Okay. Oh great! At a circuit that they actually own. This should go down well.
Formula One Pirelli Grand Primo della Toscana Ferrari 1000 2020. It's a Tuscany Grand Prix. I'm not going to repeat that anytime soon.
Where did you find that full name?
On F1's website. It's too complicated.
Why on earth is the name that long? Yeah, I mean, in other news, also I saw that Formula E champion Antonio Felix da Costa is looking to make a return for probably just a debut in Formula One at the Portuguese Grand Prix, as he's Portuguese. I don't know. Should be interesting.
It would actually be nice to see how they compare, because I think it's who's the reserve driver for Mercedes that's also driving in Formula E. Yeah, Stoffel.
Van Dorn.
But it would be nice to see how a Formula E driver compares to Formula One.
I mean, he was part of the Red Bull Driver Academy, but that sort of went sour at some stage. But yeah, he had a few bad races, and those just happened to be the races that Dr. Marco came and just check how things were going with him. So yeah, but I think that is that okay if we end the stream there?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine with me.
Well, thank you for everybody who watched, everybody who liked. I can't see on the screen if anybody has subscribed, but we are.
I did.
Yeah, we are. We'll see when the next stream comes out. Probably somewhere next weekend. But yeah.
Enjoy the weekend. Stay safe. Well, not the weekend. The weekend's over.
The weekend's over.
Enjoy the week.
Yeah.
Enjoy the week.
Thank you for everybody communicating in the chat. That's just some extra filler. And yes, if you do know of anybody else who might be interested in Formula One, please share this with them. And yes, all the usual stuff that YouTubers would say in an outro, but thank you for watching.
Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe.
Yeah, I think we are still quite a long way off of the main YouTube stuff like sponsorships and stuff. This isn't supposed to be. At the moment, we don't. I don't know. This might become something big. It might stay something small.
It's more of a fun way to just casually chat with audience about how the race went and news in the motorsport world.
Yeah. Well, enjoy your week and regards from us. Goodbye.